Hey, Riding Side Saddle. We're back with Tammy.
And Lisa.
And we have Todd!
Our silent partner is finally here. He's not going to talk at all.
Now he'll be real silent.
That'll be my, yeah, exactly. I have to tell you something. I've been in radio a long time, right?
Yeah.
In broadcasting. This is probably the nicest studio I've ever been in. I've never been in one with this much leather in my entire life.
I think the location...
It's climate controlled.
It is.
Right?
I think the location is particularly great
Oh
today.
my gosh.
Yeah.
We are in downtown Oshkosh. Straight between...
A porta potty and the dumpsters. We are a sandwich. A shit show sandwich, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
With Todd.
Look at Tammy starting
Yeah,
the whole thing
there it
out
is.
with her first
There it
swear
is.
of the event.
Well, I guess I lost that pool.
I'm going to step my game up for season 5.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Tammy and the potty mouth.
How much, so I understand, because this is the first time I've been on the podcast.
Yeah.
I understand what took place prior to the podcast with us three.
Yeah?
How often do you guys consume that much alcohol before a podcast?
Never as much as we did today.
Okay. just double checking.
Nope.
We generally don't have 3-hour planning sessions.
Right. This was... You're special, Todd.
You are.
Like, this is a special
That's what my
event.
cup says.
Oh, my God. And it's so true.
Your mom was right.
Yes, she was.
You are special.
Mr. Rogers saying straight to you, Todd.
Yeah.
Oh, whew. So just as a little bit of background,
Yeah.
if you have been an avid listener of Riding Side Saddle, in every single episode of the last year that we have been recording, you have heard Todd's name.
Todd from Mind Garden Media.
He is an extraordinarily important part of all of
Absolutely.
this craziness that happens in the recording studio. But never before have we had the opportunity to have him live in
in the studio.
right, to be chatting and talking.
So Todd, not only is he with Mind Garden Media,
You're gonna have to
and
edit
he's
that noise
making,
out.
Yeah, he's making it worse for himself.
No, usually we don't have guests like breaking shit in the back seat. Just
That's all
saying.
right. He's just making it worse for
I
himself.
mean, whatever.
Yeah. So not only is he the editor-in-chief of all of our podcasts, he is also our cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly, because our family is, I don't know, I think the...
I have some words that could go into that.
Interestingly is one of them.
Our family is fill in the blank.
A little interesting.
Welcome to Match Game 73.
So Lisa and I, our grandpa, is Todd's mom's brother.
Right.
So Todd's grandpa is not our grandpa. So we're not first cousins. We're first cousins once removed.
Thank you. So
Yeah.
Todd and our mothers are actually
cousins,
first cousins.
cousins.
Right.
Right.
But we are very close in age,
Right. Yeah. Todd's the oldest, though.
by far.
I want to know why I get on a podcast with another, like a female or something, and that's always what's brought up. How
Is
much
it?
It is.
Oh.
Sandy does this to me all
does
the
she?
time.
Oh.
How much older am I to you, Tammy?
A year.
A year? Well,
Yeah,
that's not
a
that
year and a
much.
couple
No,
months,
it's
maybe.
You're a couple
Yeah.
more, though, right?
Yeah,
You're-
I'll be 50 this coming November.
Oh,
so
we're-
not very far,
No,
really.
we're basically the same age.
Right.
So I grew up with Todd. My mom and dad would hang out with his mom and dad quite a bit when we were much younger, like really little. I can remember being in his basement. I couldn't have been maybe 4 or 5 years old. Would you say, Todd?
I mean, it would have to be. When we moved away from you guys, I was 8.
Yeah.
So up until about that time, we spent a lot of time together.
We did. Yeah. So I have very fond memories of hanging out with Todd in the basement.
I always thought
Giggling away.
I always thought that I would marry you. Like I
You
thought,
did.
when I was a little boy, I thought, but
so sweet, Todd.
little boys have to marry little girls, and so I think you were the one that I had chosen.
Oh,
That's fucking adorable.
that is adorable.
Really?
And then
Was it her giggle?
It was the okay. So I don't want to get too weird, but
I mean, we might as well start it out just exactly like say
Why
for
not
what it
make
is.
it weird?
Right.
Yeah.
she's got the most incredible smile,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
So when she laughs and stuff, it's just contagious. We were having the quote unquote meeting before the
planning
podcast.
session.
It's very tactile.
Very.
Yes.
Here's the thing about it. It started off very down in the dumps, and
Ooh,
I
it
kind of
did.
brought that feeling.
Well,
So I apologize for that. And then there was tons of laughter and crying from that. And then there was more like sadness, whatever. What are you guys doing? There's some sort of like communication going on.
I
There's
didn't want my husband or somebody to be texting me
To
and
be
the
talking
noise
about
come
the
through.
fucking Bears.
I didn't think I turned the ringer off. Yeah, he's at a Bears game today, and
They lost?
He's got to text me every play. Yeah, I think they lost.
That's too bad.
Yeah,
Sorry to hear that.
sorry.
I feel really bad about that.
he's not going to listen to this, so you don't have to feel bad.
The Bears suck. So
Bears still suck.
okay, so let's go back. Right, our planning session. We had some sadness. We had some laughter. We had some more sadness.
But it
Continue.
was really deep conversation.
It
It
was.
wasn't just like, somebody in the family died. It wasn't that kind of
No.
sadness. But sometimes when you talk about things really deep, like it gets into, some things that are
Some
not
nitty-gritty.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Some tough
Nitty-gritty.
shit.
Yeah.
I didn't want to cut you off.
Well, I just think that the one thing that I appreciate with you guys, and we don't get together that often, like
No.
we get together once a year or something like that, maybe more often.
Wow.
In the future?
That sounds like a challenge.
One you won't win. Let me just tell you that much.
We're on the books for next September. Maybe at Tammy's house next time.
Between the bathroom and the garbage can.
Yeah, right.
So that we fit the same scenario.
right.
Yeah, we want to feel at home.
But we started talking, and we get pretty deep, right? And
Yeah,
we
we
open
do.
up to one another.
We do.
And I don't feel that way with a lot of people. Like, I can't just be myself necessarily in front of people, but I can do that with you guys. So I
That's
want to
pretty
say
cool.
thank you, because that's a gift that you give me by allowing me to be that way. So thank you for that.
Gosh.
Thank you for
Thank
trusting us
you.
enough to bring your whole self. Or most of yourself.
And that wraps up the podcast for the week.
Vulnerability over.
Yeah, right.
So although Tammy and Todd have a long time relationship together as cousins and, potential marriage, possibilities.
I think it's
In
is
there
it legal
somewhere.
in Wisconsin?
I'm not sure. Well, it's once removed. First
Right.
cousin,
So
once
that makes it a
removed.
little
might
better.
be okay.
I mean, fucking Tammy is cousins with everybody.
Right,
so,
right.
like, let's
And
just...
we're both already married, so that might be a little weird.
How you doing?
I will say that last year at our annual event,
Yeah.
our first annual event, was really the first time that I had an opportunity to sit face to face with you.
Yeah.
We had...
You knew of Todd.
I
He
did.
wasn't a new cousin to you.
No, I knew kind of vaguely of Todd, but not until we
But you
started
had not
talking
really
about
met.
podcasts.
There were family stories about Todd, but nobody knew what was true and not.
I mean, not really, but like I didn't...
The mythical Todd. The hypothetical Todd.
So Tammy shared Todd with me as we started talking about podcasts.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And
So I
you
know a guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it actually is my cousin and
yours.
So I had the opportunity to meet you and your sister,
Yep.
Vicky, face to face last year, really for one of probably the first times. Maybe we passed each other in a funeral environment
Or a wedding
years ago
somewhere,
or
maybe,
somewhere.
yeah.
But I automatically felt the same thing. Like last year I had just the most fun that I had ever had with family, aside from Tammy, in my whole entire life.
Yeah.
I traditionally kind of run away from family type of events. Like, not for me. I'm living my own life. I'm not tied into the whole family thing. Like, see ya. But we chose to do this, and my whole heart filled up, and it really has not unfilled since then.
It was a great time.
It was a great time. Yeah, it was.
And I said today, and I apologize because it's kind of ridiculous that I said we should do this more often, and yet I know that I'm the one that never shows up for anything. So, but the fact that I'm here and
is a big deal. It's a really big deal, and I know how much of a big deal it is for you, which makes it an even bigger deal.
Absolutely.
So thanks for showing up today.
Yep.
But
I was thinking about ways of getting out of it.
Were you?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
No, I'm kidding. But I was,
You're not. You're not kidding.
My knee hurts so much. I can't make it. I've fallen down. My dog ate something and has the shits. Stuff like that. So.
My dog ate my knee. He's shitting it out right now.
We'll see you next year.
Maybe.
Probably not.
So throughout our really, really long planning session today, a lot of the tears and the laughter really had a lot to do with exactly what we're talking about right now in an aspect of vulnerability, right? Like, it's really hard to create the space to allow yourself, especially given the fact that last year, like, we clicked and connected and things were, we just felt very deeply about one another. And now coming back in again, kind of recognizing and understanding what you're coming in for, right? Like, last September, I didn't really know what I was expecting, right? I'm going to be, having a conversation with cousins that I've never met before. But today, I'm like, shit, like, these people are inside of my heart. Even if I hadn't seen them in a year, that ought, like, those kinds of friends where you don't see them for a period of time and it just comes right back.
You just pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and I think too, like, so I think we all felt comfortable with each other last year, right?
Yeah.
But you still walk away from that going, but maybe there's this part of me that I can't necessarily be open about.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's that I don't want to talk about because I fear judgment, or maybe they won't understand, right? And so even after that great time that we had last year, which was, and I'll admit, it was a very incredible day, I still think that I knew all this time, even though it took today for us to get together, that we could just be us around one another.
Yeah.
And that if somebody was struggling or feeling a certain way, that we could be open about it and know that the other ones kind of had our back. I kind of feel like, and this is weird, but I said this, I kind of feel like we could take on the world together if we wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to choose a couple of people.
Oh, we fucking can.
Yeah.
Let's just put it out there. Let's, like, evil masterminds together in this moment.
I just feel like I would be much safer with the two of you around.
Then on the other side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like,
I agree with that.
Is this a little bit like keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer?
I
Is that
think
what
so.
you're saying?
I think so. I think there's a little bit of that.
Well,
All
I
right,
mean,
whatever.
whatever.
I'll take it.
I mean, that might be almost true.
I'll take it.
We do have some, like, genetic stuff. It's like some deep, scary shit.
But I think that may be why it's a little bit easier in some respects to be more vulnerable around each other, because we already understand. So we have similar experiences, not the same.
The threads are the same.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
We understand where our people come from, where some of our tendencies come from, where our behaviors come from. You don't have to explain it, right? So I already see you through all those levels that most people don't get to see. So your gooey inside is already on display.
Right.
Whether you realize it or
and
not.
Todd just went, like, his throat
I know.
just closed up. I saw it.
Mine did too, actually. Like, oh, gooey inside.
Yeah, well, I'm also thinking, like, what does my gooey inside look like? Like, is it an attractive gooey inside, or is it just the nastiest damn gooey inside ever?
Oh, you know what I mean.
Is it like a peep
So
on a
much
90-degree day?
So much for not having to explain yourself.
Oh no, you still have to do that. Not because you're an issue, but we're messed up. So yeah, you have to explain that.
We are.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so as we're coming into season 5, one of the really big pieces for me personally, from a development perspective, is vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it might be a family trait, right? Like to have those defense mechanisms. I'm sorry, I just got distracted by the Spider-Man
That's
SUV
pretty
coming
cool.
through.
Spider-Mobile?
Right. I feel like there's a hidden message in that.
It's the Peter Parker mobile right there.
Well, I think it was he got it
that
cheap.
was our ride.
He got it cheap. Yeah, it was like that when he bought it for like $800 at the car lot, and it really doesn't have the money to do anything.
I was
with
thinking
it, so.
more along the lines of saving the world, or
No,
world domination. I'm not sure which way that goes.
So are
but
we saying if we're vulnerable, if we can get past this phase of vulnerability, we'll save the world?
I don't know. I don't
In
really
our
know what
Peter Parker,
in our Peter Parker
Kia.
mobile? Yeah.
I know you're kind of joking, but I think that what you say is kind of true.
I think it is true.
Like if we're willing to sit down at a restaurant and be open and honest with one another and share the darkest shit that's inside us.
Oh, my friend, you haven't seen the darkest shit
Well,
yet.
here's the thing. I think at a personal level, we look at that and go,
we
well,
got pretty close though.
Tammy's not going to accept that. Tammy doesn't want to deal with that. Lisa's not going to want to accept that part of me. And yet when we share that, I get to see a little bit of yours and a little bit of yours. And all of a sudden I realize
It's not so bad.
it's not that bad. And it's so similar to something that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
So now
Maybe
I feel
this
like...
is a safe place to share.
Exactly. Now I
Yeah.
feel like we could lock arms, walk down the street, and kick some ass.
Right. Their can of kerosene.
Which we do have. You said?
Blowtorch.
I just had a flash of the Hocus Pocus witches when
There
you
you
said that
go.
linking arms.
I mean,
yeah.
why is it so hard? Was there an instance in your life when your being vulnerable was attacked and you immediately had to put up walls?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There has been it in many different ways. I think that vulnerability equals weakness in my heart, in my mind. If I and I have said before on this podcast that perfectionism is a thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have lived by that standard. I have been, in fact, criticized for that level. Don't overlook good for the perspective
Don't let
of
good
perfect.
get in the way of of
perfect.
Yeah.
Don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Yeah.
So it has that level of perfectionism, that level of expectation of how good are you, right? How hard are you going to try to make it perfect, has always been a part of my life. And the better you can make it, the better you are. So when there's holes, when there's shit that's real fucked up and not going in an ideal direction, that's a weakness. And those are things that you don't share. Maybe down the line you share it after everything's kind of worked its way out, and you can explain through some things, or you can reflect and say, yeah, that didn't go very well, but now this and this and this, and it made it all better. Vulnerability equals weakness in my life.
For me, I don't know that it necessarily equals weakness, but I think it allows others to make you feel weak. So showing your vulnerability gives them the power to determine how you feel about yourself. And I think for me, that's always been the toughest thing.
That is a big one.
So as I listen to you summarize and say that,
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
For me, it just makes me too visible. And I grew up working real hard not to be visible. And I worked really hard in my early years, 20s, 30s, into my 40s. Just put your head down and get to work. And don't be visible. Be the duck on the pond, paddling like mad underneath, but there's not a ripple to be seen.
Because you're supposed to make it look
Because
easy?
safe, it's
or
safe that way. If you're not visible, then
so nobody's
no
paying
one can
attention
target
to you.
Yes, no one can target you. You can't get in trouble. No one can yell at you. You can't get a spanking. It's just safer.
I agree with that too, and I giggle a little bit because I think of literally 30 to 40 minutes ago when we are the three loudest people in the restaurant laughing our asses
most
off.
visible.
Right?
Right.
The
Yeah,
most
for
visible group.
I didn't think of it that way, Todd.
She'll never
And that's
laugh
all
again.
you, by the way.
You have a pretty good cackle yourself.
I'm just saying.
Missy.
But again, like in that situation, I agree with you. Like my whole life was don't look at me, don't see me,
Yeah.
don't do anything that will make yourself stand out.
Yeah.
Right? But even in that case, and I'll come back to it the entire podcast, we were together.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, fuck the world. I'll laugh my ass off today with these two.
Yeah.
And if anybody has a problem with it, bring it on.
Right.
Yeah,
Then you got
yeah.
all three of us to deal with.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
As opposed to me feeling really uncomfortable and not sure I can stand up
By myself.
by
alone.
myself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, look at us three fucking fools.
Right.
We're all laughing like
Listen.
this. So now what, bitches?
There were people looking at us.
There were.
There usually are.
Specifically when the waitress says multiple times, well, you guys were just having fun.
Were we too loud? No, you were just having fun.
People
Well.
wanted to move.
Because you were fun.
The shit cleared out. Because you were so fun.
This is the slowest Sunday afternoon we've had in months.
You better tip me well. Because I lost a lot of money this afternoon.
Oh gosh, I would say sorry, but I'm not really sorry.
So do you find yourselves knowing that this is, I'll call it a little bit of a handicap for me in that it's something that I deal with. Do you find yourself trying to help other people get beyond that in your everyday life? When you see somebody else marginalizing themselves
Yeah,
in order to hide, in order to protect themselves,
for sure.
do you reach out with the helping hand to help them away from that?
Yeah, I find myself doing that. I wouldn't say it often because that's not fair to the people that I spend time with, but I absolutely do find myself doing that. If someone's being particularly hard on themselves, I may say something like, well, I'm not sure that's really being fair to you. In all fairness, this was the whole situation. That little part, if you're just going to focus on that and forget about all these other extenuating circumstances, that's not really fair to you. I think part of why I am coming to realize that being vulnerable is so important is because, for me anyway, not being vulnerable, by trying to stay small and not let people see me, I was not able to even see myself. So it was really hard to have any sort of opportunities for personal growth because I couldn't even see what I was doing or why I was doing things.
Or even to ask the question.
Exactly, until I was in a place where I could be vulnerable enough to be an observer of myself, never mind other people, of myself. I've mentioned this before, and I'll just keep saying it. Brene Brown's book, The Gifts of Imperfection, that's when that happened for me. My friend Caroline Hi, Caroline. And we read it one chapter at a time. I would go to her house once every week or two, and we would read, like, we wouldn't read the chapter together. We would discuss the chapter, and it oftentimes took an entire afternoon to talk about one chapter.
So interestingly enough, I was decorating for Halloween yesterday. My grandson is 3, and like this is a big deal, right? Like he's big enough to know, hey, it's Halloween time.
Something fun is happening.
So I was taking a look at my bookshelf and clearing some things so that I could put skulls on the bookshelf, right?
Well, yeah, like every good
that's necessary.
grandma does.
Yep.
I mean, they're shiny and sparkly, like they're good. But I looked up and I saw that book, and I didn't even realize I have that book. I had seen Brene Brown, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, it was at a conference that I was at for work, and she was the keynote speaker. And I bought every fucking book that was there because she moved me so deeply. And I didn't realize that I had purchased that book until yesterday when I saw it on the bookshelf. So that was my indicator, my signy sign to say, bitch, you need to start looking at that book. Tammy says it and talks about it all of the time.
Yeah, it truly was life-changing for me.
Yeah, so it's time for me. Now the skeletons have decided that, I need to start looking a little bit closer at that book.
Wow, they're like, that is the skeletons. So
in my closet?
Literal, figuratively.
Like they were in the basement. Oh.
Yeah. Eeps. My stomach just hurt.
I'm feeling a little vulnerable right now. Let's change the topic. Yikes.
Yeah.
For somebody listening, though, like right now, who maybe has lived their life like we have, which is to make themselves small, or has made themselves vulnerable and maybe gotten hurt doing so or whatever. For people like that, for people like us, what's the positive side of allowing yourself to be vulnerable? Like, what's the positive? Because I think we can all sit here and talk about what the negatives have been, right? Opening yourself up, being hurt, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I think for me, one of the positives was getting to know myself on a level that I never had before. It truly was life-changing, that book. It caused me to look at not just myself, but different scenarios, different situations, different experiences in a different light. Every time this happens, this is how I react. And I was very much at that point stuck in well, this is just who I am. I don't really even know who I am, but this is just who I am. Don't challenge me. This is who I am. This is the way I was raised. But I wasn't happy. I was miserable. My whole life was falling apart in every way it could fall apart. I owned that. I had to. It was my life that was falling apart. So what had I done to contribute to that falling apart? And how do I make some different choices going forward so that doesn't have to happen again? Without having that opportunity to get to know myself, to know why is that a trigger and why do I react that way? Where is this stuff coming from? So I can unpack it and set it down. I don't need to carry all of that with me. That's way too heavy. That was a huge gift for me.
That's interesting. I can see that. I can see knowing your life and knowing like really the period of time that you were in, how that would have been really impactful for you from a discovery and a growth perspective. I feel like as I'm listening to you, I'm filtering it, saying, is that similar? Like if I were to answer that question, would I have a similar response? And gosh, for as many things as we are so like,
we're very similar.
We are so similar,
but we're not the same.
I don't know that in this situation we are exactly alike. I think,
and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. I think from my perspective, to be vulnerable, when I deliberately choose to be vulnerable, it does a couple of things. Number one, I don't feel so alone. I allow myself to have those candid conversations and to share parts of myself that I don't share very, very readily. And that's scary. That's scary as fuck to like share those pieces. And all of a sudden, when I do crack that open, somebody has interest and they have commonality. And I was like, and I'm like, oh fuck, you mean I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one who deals or who is dealing with this situation, or, you know, there's a lot of shame around those things that I choose to hold very closely to my chest. So when I am vulnerable, it makes it less shameful. Because other people actually are experiencing maybe not the exact same thing, but similar. And that makes me feel like I'm among people, right? My people. And I wouldn't have known. I would have been walking around blind and aimlessly, not realizing that I am in fact among my people, if I would have chosen to keep that silent.
It allows room for connections.
It does. It also allows room for self-compassion.
Yes.
Thank you. I was just going to say the same thing. Or self-love.
You're going to start crying too, aren't you?
Well,
I can see your eyes bubbling up.
I just feel like
I'm looking into my own eyes right now.
you talked about shame, and I think when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, as you said, around the people that you feel safe in doing so, it finally allows you to love yourself.
Yep.
Not only for the good things you know about yourself, but also the things that maybe you're not necessarily all that proud of.
Right.
Right? It's you saying, this is who I am.
Right.
This is who I was. This is how I've grown. And I'm worthy of love and respect and care and all those things.
And compassion and self-compassion probably is at the top of the fucking list.
And sometimes that's the hardest thing to get, right?
It is 100% the hardest thing to get.
I think you said it much better than the way I said it. I got to know myself. But that's what I was getting at.
Oh, so we are the same.
Maybe so. I could see myself for the first time ever. In part, it was because I had slowed down enough to take a look, right? But once you've taken a look, now what are you going to do with that? What if you don't like all of the things you see? A lot of that was talking about, when Caroline and I were meeting, it was talking about things I had done or I had said that I wasn't very proud of. Now what do you do with it?
Right. It's not
now
the
I just
stuff
opened this big old can of yuck. Now what?
Right. It's not the stuff you put at the top of the building in a spotlight on display.
Right.
Like, I fucked up in some way.
Yes.
Right? And that feels shitty.
Right. So that can just be one more big old backpack of yuck that you carry around.
Bury it.
Right. Or you can give yourself some self-compassion.
Right.
And some grace. The things that I would give to other people freely and easily, now I can give it to myself. Someone recently said to me, "It's really good to be you." And he meant it. It's really good to be you.
You need to explain that
no one else,
further.
No one else can be you. It is really good to be you. Be happy being you. I was having a moment. Unfortunately for me, it was in public. Someone had come up to me at a volleyball game. I'm having some back and neck problems, and so I'd been sitting on bleachers for several hours, and it was really uncomfortable physically. My head was hurting, my neck was killing me. So I had chosen to just stand. Like, I had gone into it was more of a gallery area that overlooked all the courts. And I was just there by myself, trying to will my neck into submission, which was not working. And so I was already in a sort of a vulnerable
physically
place
vulnerable,
because I was in a lot of pain.
Right.
Yeah. Advil wasn't working. It just, nothing was working. So anyway, he had come up to me to ask about a mutual friend, and I because I've not been feeling well for months. I mean, it's been very acute. Whatever is happening with me has been very acute for the last several months, all summer really. So I feel like I haven't been a good friend. There are so many people in my life that I have neglected because I've needed to take care of myself. And that's very difficult for me to do. Just take care of myself is very difficult. And then to neglect other people. Like, that's just a whole nother level of shame.
Right.
Right. And so all of this just came spewing out of me. And he said, whoa. I'm not judging you. I'm not putting this on you. And now I'm crying in public, which is, fabulous.
Also very vulnerable.
Right, right, exactly. And I said, this isn't coming from you. This is coming from me. You just asked the right question, and now it's all just bubbling out. And he said, look, I don't know what's all going on, and you don't have to tell me. But I can feel that this is more than just something physical. And all I can say to you is, it's really good to be you. You don't have to carry all of this around. It's really good to be you.
And then you cried more.
And then I cried more, right. And then his wife came over and rescued me. So that was great.
Because it doesn't always feel good to be you.
Exactly.
Right?
It doesn't always. Right.
When you get inside of yourself
yes,
and you can't see yourself from somebody else's perspective.
Sure. Or when the gremlins are a little too loud, right?
It's hard.
It is hard sometimes. Yeah.
It sounds cliche to say you are your own. Okay, let's try this.
How many beers? Did you have? Brought to you by Spotted Cow.
Hazy something.
I wish we were sponsored by somebody.
Right.
Spotted Cow would do.
When you hear people say you are your own worst critic,
yeah.
That sounds very cliche.
It's absolutely true.
It is. It could not be closer to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
People do not view you, aka me, from the outside the way I view myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh boy, that gets into so many big things.
I'm
like
crying, so I have to stop now.
Imposter syndrome comes to mind, right? If people really knew, if they really knew who I was, they wouldn't think I'm so...
X.
Yeah, I'm
right.
such a good employee. I'm such a good wife. I'm such a good, whatever. If they really knew what I was thinking and feeling on the inside, if they really knew, if they really could see me, that leads to again, another giant backpack full of yuck.
Well, and I think that there's a lot to that, right? Literally just last night, having dinner with my brother and sister-in-law, sharing some of kind of the stuff that's been like life stuff. And my sister-in-law looked at me and she said, "You are such a badass." Mm. And that is the last term that I would use for myself.
Oh my goodness.
Like, that is the last
Todd
term.
wants to link arms with you and take on the world. I'd say badass qualifies. That's a good descriptor.
I agree.
But I don't feel that way, right?
No,
I feel broken and I feel like
you're overwhelmed
and stumbling and trying to use tape and bubble gum and patch fucking holes, and that does not feel like a badass, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And those are the things that I hold inside.
Right.
Like, those are the emotions and the moments of vulnerability that no, you just stay back there. Because if you look at me and you see a badass, well, that's exactly what I want you to see.
Oh, because on the inside,
it doesn't feel that way.
It feels a lot of bad.
Right.
But not in
and a lot of ass. But not together. In a good way.
In giving this individual a little credit, sometimes we as humans can see you patching things together with duct tape and gum and all that. We see that happening and we still step back and go, holy shit. She's fucking rocking it, right?
Yeah.
It's not because you're digging in your pockets to find something to fill the hole in the wall. It's the fact that you have the strength to even do that.
Exactly. Woo!
I have to break. I have to break the vision right now.
Stop making
that's
eye contact.
vulnerable. Yeah. I'm gonna go to the porta potty. I'll be right back.
It's like, oh my God, we are so much alike in this car. It's scary.
It's fucking awkward as fuck.
But I don't want it to be for you guys. You guys gave me a gift today, right?
We did.
You gave me a little cup, right?
It's a mug.
It's a mug, and it's got Mr. Rogers on it, and it says, "It's you I like." I believe. Or no,
You
you're
are
special.
special.
Okay.
Yes. We told you that Mr.
He
Rogers
never
doesn't
said
like
he
you.
liked you.
He just said you're special.
Well, that blows my entire speech out.
We'll edit that out. What were you going to
No,
say?
it's good. No. Listen, I'm editing. I'm leaving that in. People need to know the real you.
Badass as she is. She's kind of a bitch.
I love her, but she broke my heart.
Todd is now glad he didn't marry me.
Oh, shit. Dodged a bullet there.
In so many ways. So many ways.
So the reason why I appreciate it is I'm a huge Mr. Rogers fan. Okay.
Yeah.
So growing up, I was young and I still had these feelings. I was still the one who didn't want to be seen. I was still the one I didn't want people to pay attention to. And when people did pay attention to me, it was very uncomfortable for me.
Yep.
So when I would watch this show, this person made me feel really good about myself.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do something that you're not going to like, okay? But I'm going to share some lyrics to one of his songs.
Aw.
Okay?
Why wouldn't we like it?
Because you'd probably get mad at me. You'd probably say things like he never liked me anyway.
I mean, we will. That is true. But thanks for ruining it.
And here's the thing, we're all broken to some extent, but if we can look in the mirror and say these words to ourselves every once in a while, I think it goes a long way.
We're all going to be crying.
Motherfucker, Todd.
So he said in a song called It's You I Like, It's you I like. It's not the things you wear. It's not the things, or it's not the way you do your hair, but it's you I like. The way you are right now, the way down deep inside you, not the things that hide you, not your toys, they're just beside you. But it's you I like. Every part of you, your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new. I hope that you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you I like, it's you yourself, it's you I like.
God damn it.
And it's ironic that you brought this little cup to me, to this little mug, and yet the words of a man who's been gone for all these years sum up exactly what we're talking about today on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
It's about being vulnerable with people and allowing them to love you for who you are. But more importantly, for you to be able to allow yourself to love yourself.
Wow, sometimes that's a big ask, isn't it?
Absolutely.
All the time, that's a big ask. Because you're designed, you're taught, you're
Conditioned.
innately set up, at least I am, to say, where's the flaw? Fix the flaw, fix the flaw. Where is it? Oh, this is not right. This could potentially be not right. Don't go down this path because that'll lead you to something not right. Fix the flaw.
You would be worthy, but for these things. Ugh.
Or
I say,
run fast enough and fix fast enough so that you continue to stay that way.
And I say, because of your flaws, that's what makes you worthy.
Right.
Because of the stuff that you've had to go through and get through and deal with.
Whew.
I mean, I could sing,
Wow.
but I don't think that'd be... I don't have my ukulele with me.
We wouldn't want you to be off too without your ukulele.
And it's too hot in here for a sweater. So that's out. Maybe next year, Tom.
Same place, same time?
Maybe.
I'll see you next to the porta potty.
To the porta potty.
1 year from today.
All down the shitter.
Now there's the title of the show.
It'll be a toss-up. We'll see what happens.
So as we're talking, I keep thinking about a situation that happened recently, and I'm comparing our time today to some time I spent with some other people where I absolutely do not feel safe. And I shut down real hard. And in that moment, I felt it. I knew what I was doing. And it absolutely is a protection thing.
Yeah.
And earlier in our planning session, I was saying, not everybody gets to see all of you.
That sounds so fancy, doesn't it? In our planning session.
Yeah.
Well, it is. Not everybody gets...
Beers and bullshit is what she means.
All right, but really, not everybody gets to see all of you. That's not a requirement for you to go around with all of yourself for everybody. It's not for everybody.
Right.
But what I have realized today in the recording studio, which also sounds fancy, but it is that today I allowed myself to be seen, and I had a great time, a really great time. In that other situation, I didn't allow anybody to see me at all. I was closed down so hard. It was, a general, just starting a conversation. Hey, Tammy, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
Right.
That, you're getting nothing from me.
Right. Surface level.
Exactly.
You got it.
And you can ask that same question 5 different ways. I'm going to give you the same answer.
Right.
And again, I knew I was doing it, and I knew why I was doing it, but I was not having fun. I kept looking at my phone thinking, is now an appropriate amount of time? Can I leave now? Would it be all right would anybody notice? And the whole time I'm at this situation, in this environment, that's what I'm thinking. I was not having any fun. I just couldn't wait to get out of there. I'm not saying I should have been vulnerable in that situation, that I should have let people see me. They don't get to see me. They're not safe.
Perhaps you have to pay a ticket, right? You have to pay the ticket price to be able to access who I am, because I'm important, and those pieces that I'm vulnerable about, I will give them, but to the people that I feel comfortable to do that with. Well, that's it.
And so, everybody is flawed. Everybody has stuff. Not everybody is in the same place I'm at. So if you're in a different place, if you're in a place where you're going to use information to then talk about,
right,
you're just going to talk about me,
right,
and I'm literally giving you the sword to stab me in the back. If that's how I feel, because that's just the place that you're in right now, then I don't need to bring the sword with me, right? I'll keep it all close to myself, and I won't have to feel that way. I'm not saying I should have been more vulnerable and having a better time. Well, it was an observation in that when I am with people where I can be vulnerable and be myself, I have a blast.
I think it's a two-way street.
Absolutely.
Right? Like today we're talking about, some reading the vibe. And being able to sense
where you read the room.
Yes. Yeah. Like, is this a safe and comfortable environment? Right? If it's evident and clear, which is maybe the threshold that I use, do I feel safe, or do I feel like you're asking surface questions to get surface answers so that you can surface go do what you're going to do with that information? Well, then fuck no, the gate's closed. And we've talked about this before, right? Until you meet standards for me to allow the environment that I feel comfortable to share this information with you, you're getting shit. You're getting, I'm fine, thanks. And you can ask me again and in a different way and poke from a different angle. It's all good. We're fantastic.
Yep.
When you come to the game with some skin, and I think to myself, you're an authentic person, then perhaps I will be vulnerable with you too.
So that, I think, is what I was saying, but you said it much more eloquently. You are in a different place where you are wanting to use information as a weapon, as opposed to you are bringing your authentic self, so I can bring mine too.
And I think, don't you, I mean, I was just going to ask the question, do you ever throw out little, you guys like to use the term snacks, but do you ever throw a little snack just to see how they pick that snack up?
Yep.
And that, what came to mind was a saying by Maya Angelou, who said, you know, when somebody tells you who they are the first time, believe them.
Yes.
So when you see that person and how they react with other people, you don't even have to throw out a snack. You already know.
That's right.
Where they're at.
You start talking about other people with me, I know where I stand. Zip it.
Yep. Or their interactions with other situations in life.
Yes.
I'm working with some people now that I'm just starting to get to know. And just in their, and not even necessarily by me reaching out and opening the door, but just their reaction to certain things in the world, in their families and stuff like that. I know where I stand, and I know how much I'm willing to pull down that wall and how much more I'm willing to build it up.
Sure.
To stay in a safe place with them.
Right.
So now what you said earlier, and you said it even earlier during our planning session, and I wasn't able to like connect with it entirely. But now in this context, I 100% understand not everybody gets to see the full you.
Right. And that's okay too.
Yes, that has to be
but
okay.
But I really hope that everybody has somebody in their life that they do get to just be themselves with.
Right.
I think it's important, not just for them, but for you. I mean, it goes both ways. If you don't bring yourself, they can't bring themselves. You don't get any genuine connection.
Yeah.
If you hold yourself back all the time.
You get the bullshit filter.
You get the, I'm fine, thanks, how about you?
Right. And that's lonely.
It is lonely.
It's
but
really
it's good
lonely.
to be you. It's okay to let people see you. But you get to decide who those people are. I think sometimes, especially when we're younger, we are maybe not as discerning, for myself anyway. And so maybe share things with people who maybe really are not in the same place I'm at. And they did use it as a weapon. So I got my heart hurt. And my ego hurt. And now I can't trust myself. I can't trust myself. I know I can't trust you, but now I can't trust me either. And getting to a place where you can unpack some of that and realize that wasn't about me. That really was about them. And I am trustworthy.
I get that. And
that's a big lesson.
And I've been there too. I think that this, aspect of not being vulnerable also can like bite you in the ass, right? Because by not being vulnerable and not sharing information with other people, people are storytellers, right? And that's by nature. That we all have it in us. So, and when I say storytellers, I mean, you make connections. If you don't have the whole story given to you, you start making connections, and those connections may be accurate and they may not. And most likely, most of the time, if you don't have all of the pieces, you're drawing inaccurate connections.
Right. And
conclusions. And I've faced this very recently where I've chosen not to share all information willingly and openly, and people have made connections based on the pieces, the tidbits that they have, and they're wrong. And
so they're just drawing conclusions based on partial information.
Yes. It's in part because I didn't share them. And it's in part because that's human nature to draw conclusions, but they're fucking wrong conclusions, and they have made decisions based off of those conclusions that were fucking wrong. And it ended up coming back to really, really hurt me deeply.
Yeah.
In part, it's my it's my own fault in part. And that's an aspect of vulnerability, right? I've kept things very close to my chest because they have been very deep and very painful. And as a result of keeping that very close, I've gotten more hurt.
Yikes.
And that sucks.
So you were
I was
holding things back to protect yourself, but it hurt you anyway.
Yes.
Oh.
It did. So it's like a no-win situation, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you do with that, right? So now I could go back and say, well, you were fucking wrong, and here are all the details that I didn't tell you, and then new conclusions are drawn that I was like keeping to myself begin with because it is very vulnerable. Do I want that, or do I want to be like, cool, make your conclusions that are super high level and simplistic and don't match the situation at all? And you go ahead and do that, and I will be hurt.
Oh boy.
So there, it just feels like a no-win sometimes, right? Like, I don't have to be an open book. I'm managing some real serious shit and learning some stuff that is specifically for me. I don't have to share everything. But I would hope that, like, I would have wished that very basic and simple conclusions weren't made without even asking me about it.
Was this an individual that you feel has an important place in your life?
Yes.
That's the hard part.
It is.
If it's just some dork
Random,
at work,
I don't
right?
fucking
You're
care.
like, whatever,
right?
Fuck you. Blah,
Draw
blah,
your
blah.
conclusions.
Right.
What do you
I don't
know?
give a shit about what you think about me. Right.
Well, and that sort of thing.
It sucks.
It
does. Hurts a lot.
It absolutely does. And when you are drawing conclusions because you think you have the whole picture, or you are drawing conclusions based on your own perception only, without taking a step back to take a look at how things might be from the other side. I have had relationships severed because of that, and people who were very close in my life. Long periods of estrangement that are still ongoing for exactly what you're talking about. And I chose to be like, well, that's what you want to think, then that's what you want to think. I'll let you have it.
I also, like, looking at it from a 360 perspective, I know how easy it is to do that. And I say that because I'm certain that I've done that, right? I'm certain that I've done it. I've drawn my own conclusions. I've said, nope, this is the simple answer to this, and I have never confronted it, right? Had a conversation around it and just tucked it away to say, yep, this is how I feel about this. So there's a lesson in this for me, in that in those situations where I have done that and chosen to not have a conversation to say, you know, this is the story I told myself, based on the information that I had. And I wanted to talk to you about it. Is the conclusion that I drew, is it true, or correct me, right? Where did I go wrong with this? I can tell you that I have done that. And now I'm seeing it from a different angle.
Side.
Yeah. And so there's a lesson in it for me. There's several lessons in it for me. That it's easy to do that too.
And really, it takes away from the connections that you could make. Right?
It also takes away from, like, it also takes away from, like, did you really think that I, like, am not, like, that I'm, I don't know what the right word is, that I'm that foolish, that I'm that I don't know, not connecting dots. Like, did you really think that I was
not
that
dumb.
simple?
Yeah.
Because you're making a really simple connection and you have no idea of the depth of this. So therefore you must think that I can't too, which also hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Vulnerability. There's like
It's a humdinger, all right.
there's so many like suckers, right? There's so many like roots off of this thing.
No, you're not talking about Canadian thistle.
Yes. Yes, I am. This is the Canadian thistle of emotions.
Yeah. Yeah.
God. Dig deeper.
Yeesh.
Dig deeper. Well, now I feel super awkward. So somebody should say something.
Why would you feel awkward about that? Because you brought a Canadian thistle? So...
I mean, Tammy did that.
Well, true.
If we're being honest.
That's true.
I don't feel awkward about that. That's what it reminded me of. Maybe because I was pulling more of them yesterday.
Maybe it's just me being a dreamer, because I can kind of be that way. I know I come across as cold and unfeeling and all that, but I really feel if we can love ourselves and even the bad things about us, while we may not love them, we can understand why we are who we are, and we can work on them. But I think if we have more of a love for ourselves, I think it will allow us to allow more people in if they're worthy, because we'll have safety with ourselves. And I know that seems weird, but
it's not at all weird.
When you're so uncertain about yourself and you're so judgmental about who you are, it helps feed everybody else's feelings toward that as well. So if you are feeling love and you're feeling compassion toward yourself and grace and all that, when you do open up and maybe you made a wrong choice and opened up to the wrong person and it came back to bite you, deep inside you still know who you are. Mm-hmm. You still know that you are worthy, you are lovable,
right?
You have good aspects to who you are as well as the bad. But when you have that knowledge and you really truly understand yourself, somebody else making that mistake is probably a little less hurtful.
That is absolutely true.
It is.
I was in, this was a former family member. Back in the day, this person was always very critical. They may still be. I feel like it was directed to me specifically, and always had been. I ran into this person, and somehow it wasn't necessarily my weight came up, but my weight came up in this conversation. And I just looked at this person and I said, you know what? This is just the way I am right now. Just the way I look today. Tomorrow I might look different. And I am worth more than just the way I look. That was the end of the conversation. I turned around and walked away. There was a time when that would have crushed me.
Yeah.
I would have hung on to that. I would have allowed myself to be a victim, and I would have carried that like a goddamn torch. This time, I really was, honestly, I felt kind of bad for that person. After all these years, I haven't run into you in probably, I don't know, more than a decade. And that's what you want to talk about.
And this is where we're at. Yeah.
My weight? Really?
Right.
I am way more interesting than the way my body looks right now. It made me feel bad for that person as opposed to feeling bad for me.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Because you honestly felt that way about yourself, right?
Yes,
Good.
Absolutely.
That's
right.
the most important part of that.
Right. But had I not done all of this work, had I not learned how to be vulnerable, which then allowed me to see myself and have some self-care and some self-compassion and realize my self-worth, that conversation would have went very, very different.
Absolutely. And so would the conversation in your head for a very long time after that conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
people need to have licenses to drive cars and stuff like that. I feel like people should be required to have a license to be a human. And no, but what I mean by that is I think if everybody had to take a look at themselves and get to the core of who they were, I think the way they treat other people and treat the world and treat living kind or whatever you want to call it would be much different.
I think you're right.
Well, and in part, and a large part, that is how people keep themselves safe, right? Mm-hmm. They like tear down other people. Like, well, like I can't be so bad if you're like this, and let me tell you all the ways that you are like this, so that it makes me feel better about who I am.
Misery loves company sort of thing.
Yeah. Or I'm not so bad if you are this and this and this.
Look
and
at this person.
And you are. Let me tell you,
I'm way better than that. And it really has far more to do with lack of self-worth, confidence, love, fill in the blank, to attack somebody else, to make them as low as you feel about
yourself.
Right. Ugh. That's yucky.
That is yucky.
And truthful.
Mm-hmm. How come you guys bring me on the show to do all the downer stuff?
It was just one time.
So I went on this podcast and I was quoting Mr. Rogers and stuff, and we were all crying, and holy crap. It was the best time I ever had. It was a great time.
When I left that porta potty / dumpster / recording, I felt like shit. I
feel so strong we should go out and dump that thing over and show who we really are.
Light that bitch up.
I'm going to go ahead and call ahead to the fire department because I have a feeling something like that's going to happen. I want them on watch. Oh, can't say for sure, but I think there's going to be a fire.
At the corner of.
And there's 3 suspects.
Wow. You do know that if there is a fire in this area, that we're on the hook.
Don't do that, Todd.
Yeah, we'll be number 1, 2, and 3 suspects.
Here I am.
Yeah.
The runaway vehicle.
Was used moments earlier as a studio.
Oh. So, hey, thanks for joining us.
I'm actually really honored. I think a lot of what you guys do, and I enjoy the podcast, and I'm glad you guys finally got off your asses and actually did it. And as I said before...
I thought you were going to say and actually had you on it.
No, I think this will be your worst podcast ever.
By far.
By far. You know, but luckily I could look at myself in the mirror and think that I'm not all that bad, even after she just said that. I said this inside, I'll just say it again for your listeners. Whether 2 people enjoy the podcast or 2 million people enjoy the podcast because it resonates with them, you are making a difference in their lives and your lives. So it's a win-win.
Thanks for that, Todd. That means a lot.
Yep.
A real lot.
If I could muster up words without crying like a baby, I would. But that cuts me to the depth of why I'm doing this. It cuts straight to it. So thank you.
Thanks for
thank you for seeing us.
Yeah.
Well, listen.
And your eyes are bloody.
I see you.
Okay. So, note to self. This might be a one-time experience.
Now that I think of it, that was pretty creepy, wasn't it? I see you.
I was going to ask if you can come back, but now I'm not sure.
We'll talk. We'll call you.
Our people will call you our people.
Great.
In all sincerity, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Today has been amazing, just like a year ago, and next year will be amazing too, because that's when we'll see her next. But know that every time we speak about you on the podcast, it is...
We mean it.
With all of our hearts. From the moment that this idea was conceived to every single podcast that you're forced to listen to, because you're editing it, we truly and wholeheartedly appreciate what you have done and continue to do.
Well, I'll just say I love you guys. I'll just leave it at that, okay?
Okay.
I love you back.
And that's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Do you want to say thanks to Mind Garden Media?
Yeah, may as well.
It's about freaking time.
Oh, God.
Well, if you want to do a podcast, I know a guy.
He's in the back
He's
seat.
in the back seat right now.
3 beers in.
Mind Garden Media, they're all over the place. Just Google them. I don't know what else to say.
They may be in the porta potty by the end of the night.
Yes.
He'll get back to you eventually, though.
Tipped over, door closed. All right.
And thanks to our listeners. Thanks for hanging out, following along. I'm so grateful for everybody who, gosh, really, just, it's still happening a year later. Hey, are you guys still doing your podcast?
Fuck yeah, we are.
Yeah, people are interested. People are still talking about it. You know what you guys should do next on your podcast is this. Thank you for being there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for seeing us.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
I have nothing more to say beyond
All right,
that.
then. Till next time.
Bye.
Toodaloo.